It might be Super Bowl week, but honestly, I'm more of a draft guy. And we've just had the Senior Bowl, and we've also had the massive news that Myles Garrett has requested a trade. So I think it's time to do a mock draft through that lens. So in this mock draft, we're going to be trading Myles Garrett to a certain team. We'll talk about that when the Browns pick. And also, there might be a few more players now in the back of the first round off the Senior Bowl, and a few more players rising up the board also off the back of the Senior Bowl. So let's just get right into it. First overall pick, the Tennessee Titans. They have come out and said that they're not going to pass on a generational prospect, quote unquote generational prospect. I don't know how much I buy that, considering how much they do need a quarterback. But they do have a new general manager, so he does have job security. They don't have to draft a quarterback, and I have given them Cam Ward in literally every mock draft I've done so far. So you know what? Let's take the bait. Let's go Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is generational, quote unquote, in the sense that he can play both ways, which literally only happens once in a generation, if not honestly, even more than that. Really, the only player that's actually done it to any notable level is Deion Sanders, or who also played corner and wide receiver. Now, for me, Travis Hunter is third on my board. I think he is a fantastic talent, but it's really important to understand. You're not getting a generational wide receiver. You're not getting a generational cornerback. The way that he is generational is because he can play both. So it's a funny use of the word generational, I think, there for Travis Hunter. But as a cornerback, he's got elite instincts. He's a fantastic athlete on both sides of the ball. And really, what I would do with Travis Hunter, now, I've said this before and I'll say it a million times over. I would play him full-time at cornerback. That means he can learn the defensive playbook, which is much bigger. He can be a real impact maker there. I personally think he's better at corner than he is at wide receiver. I think he's a damn good wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. He'd be my wide receiver 3 in this class, but he'd be my cornerback 1 or 2. And I think that is a more impactful position for most teams. I think it's quite difficult to find corners. I think you can find wide receivers, not easily, don't get me wrong, they don't just grow on trees. But I think he's more impactful at corner. But also, if he plays corner, he can also play a few snaps a game at wide receiver. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Right, now, the Browns. It's time for a trade. Usually I don't do trades in mock drafts, but obviously, given the new circumstances, I've got to make an exception. Now, Myles Garrett has said that he wants to go to a team that's competitive. So realistically, that's going to be teams that are lower down on the draft board. So the 3 teams that jump to mind for me are the Detroit Lions, who pick at 28, the Washington Commanders, who pick at 29, and the Buffalo Bills, who pick at 30. Now, if I was doing what I want, I would send Myles Garrett to the Buffalo Bills. I think he'd be a great fit there in terms of getting the Bills essentially over the hump. They haven't been able to beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game multiple times now, and they keep falling short. And I think a player like Myles Garrett would absolutely take the Bills potentially across the finishing line. Problem there, though, is they are $15 million over the cap for next year. So not exactly rolling in money, which, you know, look, I think that any team that wants Myles Garrett, who is literally the best defensive player in the league, I think you'll work something out, right? The Saints have been essentially proving the cap doesn't really exist for the last few years. So things can be done there, but obviously it is harder. Now, the Commanders, and also I also have to say that really for these teams, it's going to be, can you part with the draft capital? Less so about the money. I think the money can be worked around. It's more about the draft capital. The Bills have really not been known to nail their first round picks in recent years. So I really don't think parting with at least 2 first round picks. I personally think it would be 3 for these teams that are going to be picking later in every draft because they're competitors, right? Khalil Mack went for 2 first round picks and change. I think Myles Garrett's worth 3. Bills is one option. I think they'd happily part with 3 first round picks. They've not been cooking in the first round in recent years. Commanders is obviously a massive one. They have hit gold with Jaden Daniels. Their defense was really lacking. They had 55 points put up against them in the NFC Championship game, mostly because of the ground game. I think it was the record for rushing touchdowns in an NFC Championship game. So having a player like Myles Garrett, yes, obviously he's a pass rusher, but he's just a fantastic player overall. He will definitely help bolster that defense. And the Detroit Lions. And I should say actually that the Commanders are 3rd in effective cap space for 2025. They've got $68 million. So these guys definitely have the wonga to get it done. The Lions, they have $43 million in effective cap space. So they also have the money to get it done. Obviously, the Lions took a massive hit when they lost Aiden Hutchinson. Imagine Aiden Hutchinson and Myles Garrett together. Oh my God. That would be massive. I mean, you could win a Super Bowl off the back of that easily, even with a quarterback like Jared Goff. Lions fans, don't come for me. You know what? I think if the Browns could help it, they wouldn't trade Garrett inside the AFC, which is the Bills in the AFC East and the Lions in the... Oh, no, they're not. The Lions are in the NFC North. So let's take the Bills out of it. And now we're picking between the Commanders and the Lions. Oh, you know what? Let's go Commanders. We're going Commanders. And not that it really matters for this draft. I think it is going to take definitely a first-round pick next year. I think the Browns are going to really want... If I'm the Browns, I would almost honestly pass on the first this year because it's just not that deep a class, and I would just accrue as much draft capital as I possibly could for the later years where it's almost definitely got to be a bit better. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say it's 3 first-round picks. Is that a little bit rich? Maybe, but I really think that... How do I do a player? There we go. But I do think, though, we don't need to trade... Hang on. We also don't need to trade the second overall pick, so that's fine. Where is he? If you didn't know, by the way, I'm doing this on the fly. There's no anything I'm going off. So if I'm thinking out loud, please excuse me. So yeah, Myles Garrett for 3 first-round picks. We're obviously keeping our second because the Commanders aren't trading up. We're going to force this trade through, and we're done. So now we're going to draft a player. Realistically, we all know who this is going to be, right? It's just going to have to be Abdul Carter. Now, Abdul Carter is not necessarily a pound-for-pound Myles Garrett replacement. Myles Garrett is literally, as I said, the best defensive player in the league and has been, I think, for at least 2 to 3 years, honestly, if not more than that. Abdul Carter could not come out the gate immediately and be the best defensive player in the league. Even someone like Jared Verse, who's had a fantastic season from the edge position for the Rams, has not been the best defensive player in the league. But what he can offer, Abdul Carter, is potentially being, first of all, an elite player. I think his ceiling is the highest of anyone in this class. He's my number 1 ranked player. He is so athletic. He's got such a high motor. He's explosive. He's got all the hallmarks of being an elite NFL edge rusher. He just has to realize that potential. But, he's the best edge rusher in this class, potentially the best player in this class. The Browns are getting, again, not a replacement, but someone who can at least soften the blow of losing Myles Garrett. And no, I'm not taking a quarterback here. That would be an absolute disaster. Look at these teams. Look at the needs of the Browns here. Running back and tackle. The offensive line taking a massive step back. They're going to need both tackles probably going into next year. Running backfield. Unfortunately, Nick Chubb, we all love him, but he has also taken a step back, unfortunately, with his injuries. And the wide receivers, they're okay. They're not bad. But if you put a quarterback, even like Cam Ward, who I'm way higher on than Shadur Sanders, I don't think it's enough. I don't think he's good enough of a talent to do that. And like I said, I like Cam Ward. It's more of a statement as to how bad the Browns are. And also, I mean, if you're a quarterback, you wouldn't even want to go there with the state this team is in at the moment. Anyway, I think the Browns need to take their medicine, frankly, eat this year being bad, just have a hard reset. That does leave the Giants in a fantastic position to finally draft the quarterback that I think should be the first quarterback taken, and that's Cam Ward. For the Giants, I think they're a potential trade-up candidate. I do actually think the Browns could trade down from the second overall pick, just accruing even more draft capital, really. And I think the Giants could be a candidate to trade up. Even the Titans, if they're not going to take a quarterback, I'd be letting the Giants call me because you're definitely going to get either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at 3 if the Giants take up and take Cam Ward at 1 or Shadur Sanders. So the Giants, I think, are going to potentially be a trade-up candidate. Brian Dable and Joe Schoen do not have any job security. They have to come away from the first round with a quarterback. And I think Cam Ward is the best one. I think he's got a cannon for an arm. He's a playmaker. He's what I like in my quarterbacks. I would take Cam Ward here without hesitation. Patriots. Now, I have said before that I think they will go offensive line because Mike Vrabel loves going offensive line. And I know he's not the GM, but he always likes to have a say in these things. However, I'm currently rewatching Tetairoa McMillan ahead of a draft profile that I'm going to do. So make sure to subscribe to get that. And I've also done one on Shadur Sanders as well, if you want to go and watch that as well. But he's just so good. And I think you need to build around Drake May. He is just such a great yards after the catch threat. He's a big-bodied ex-wide receiver. I think this is what Drake May needs, frankly. Like the way that McMillan plays with Fafita this year as his quarterback, he's so good at working back towards the quarterback, at being open when the play breaks down. And we know Drake May likes to roll out of the pocket and extend the play. I mean, we've seen that for ourselves. Look at the Titans game when he did it for like 8 whole seconds. And I think McMillan would pair so well with May. Give May a proper wide receiver one. That's easy. Now the Jags. Usually, I think literally every other time I've gone Travis Hunter here for them. And I think this is a pretty easy one. I'm going to go with Mason Graham. Mason Graham is a player I absolutely love in this class. I think he's one of the best players in it. He's literally like a human pit bull, 6'3", 320 pounds. He is absolutely rocked up. He's like a bowling ball. He's so explosive. He's got active hands. He's a good pass rusher from the interior of the defensive line, which is what the Jags need. They need a bit of a difference maker on defense. And he's just a great player. Can't go wrong. Raiders. I think the Raiders are also a potential trade-up candidate when it's all said and done. They desperately need a quarterback, but apart from the Myles Garrett trade, we're not going to be doing trades today. So what do the Raiders do? I've gone Ashton Genty here before. I think that's crazy. I think their wide receivers are absolutely terrible, but Tetairoa McMillan has gone. What else do they need? Let's see. Quarterback I don't love. All right. No, you know what? Let's do it. I think if this really happens, which I don't think is that realistic potentially, but if this is how the board does fall on draft day, then it's obviously going to be Shedeur Sanders, and I don't think he'll fall any lower than this on draft day anyway. The Raiders need a quarterback. Is Shedeur Sanders the answer? I don't love Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's a bad quarterback at all. I just don't think he's a quarterback that can raise the talent around him. I think he is like tofu. Let's say he'll take on the flavor of those around him. If you surround Sanders with a great supporting cast, hey, look, maybe he can take you to the playoffs like Jared Goff has with the Lions, right? And I don't mean to send a stray to Jared Goff there, but that's kind of what I see Sanders being, is a quarterback that's as good as the talent around him. And unfortunately with the Raiders, they don't have very good talent at all. I mean, their wide receivers at the moment are Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers, and Terrence Marshall, and DJ Turner. That is a miserable wide receiver core. They obviously do have Brock Bowers, so that's something. Offensive line's all right as well, which is really important for a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders. I like it. Well, I don't like it. I'll take it. We'll say that. The Jets. Now, usually I like Mason Graham here to the Jets because Javon Kinlaw is a free agent. So is Solomon Thomas. So is Leki Fotu. All defensive players, all playing along the interior of the defensive line. Who knows what's happening with Aaron Rodgers? If he goes, Devontae Adams will go. I mean, the Jets, they're so up in the air. Really, we need to see where the dust settles with this team to really know anything about where they're going to be, what they're going to be thinking come draft day. In the meantime, then, given what we know right now, I'm going to go Will Johnson to replace DJ Reed, who's also a free agent. I think the defense for the Jets has been literally the only thing that's been semi-positive in the last few years. And DJ Reed is a massive part of that. Yeah, you've got... oh my God, who is it? Yeah, you got Sauce Gardner. Sorry, you got Sauce Gardner on one side, who is great, but you also need a second corner. And Will Johnson is a fantastic one, being compared to Pat Surtain. And look, I don't think he is Patrick Surtain. I think Patrick Surtain is the defensive player of the year this year. Maybe 1A, 1B with Myles Garrett, actually. But it's an immediate impact. It's an immediate fill for a position of need. The Panthers. Again, I would love Tetairoa McMillan here. I don't see T-Mac falling past the Jets, maybe, if he's still on the board. So it's unlikely that that's going to last. Once upon a time, I gave the Panthers Abdul Carter. Defensive line, defensive back. I like wide receiver, but I think they can draft that in the second round. I think it's actually quite a deep wide receiver class quietly. If they need defensive line and they need defensive back, yeah, James Pierce Jr. I absolutely love James Pierce Jr. He, I think, is being slept on because he had massive hype going into this year as potential first overall pick. Now, a player who is, where's my James Pierce Jr.? Here we go. A player that is only 245 pounds as an edge rusher is never going to go first overall, but he's a speed rusher. And I think he is great against the run. He's so long. He's great against the pass. Yes, he's lighter, but he can take on offensive linemen with a really wide base and that length. I think he's really good. He has a 22.2% pass rush win rate this year, 59 pressures, 8 sacks. I really like James Pierce Jr. and I think he can add a bit of juice to the Panthers defense, which God knows needs it. Saints at 9. Now, I always find it difficult with the Saints because, first of all, who knows who their head coach is going to be? Maybe it's the Eagles' offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. I mean, he's the only I think he's the only person that's in contention for the job. I mean, it's a sinking ship, right? So I think here you just go pure BPA. The problem with that, though, is that would be Ashton Genty, and they have Alvin Kamara. And that's a little bit surplus to requirements, even a player like Ashton Genty. So, previously I've not gone Luther Burden here because I think that he kind of clashes a little bit with what Chris Olave offers. So, and I could go with Tyler Warren, who I do really like as a pass catcher. Who's on my board? It is Luther Burden. It is potentially Malachi Starks for what this team needs, quote unquote. There might be value with the offensive line, though, with like Will Campbell. You know what? Let's go Luther Burden. I do think there's a bit of an overlap with what Luther Burden and Chris Olave offer, kind of both smaller possession receivers. But this team just needs talent. I think Luther Burden's 2023 tape is so much better than his 2024 tape. Go and watch that if you want to watch any of Luther Burden. He was used mostly as a decoy this year, and his production just went through the floor. But I think he's a really good yards after the catch threat. I think he's basically like Malik Nabers. Jesus, I can't get my words out today. I basically think he's like Malik Nabers light. Like, is he going to come in and immediately break the rookie reception record? Probably not. But he's a really good player, and the Saints just need some dynamism on offense. Their receiver core is very lacking. Yeah, they have Rashid Shaheed as the speedster. Yeah, they got Chris Olave, but he's had a lot of injuries, and who knows about his future. So I like that pick. And again, look, for the Saints, it's just about accruing talent. They're not going to compete this year or indeed next year. Dabez. This is an easy pick for me, and if this happens on draft day, it's a sprint the card in scenario, which is Will Campbell. I really like Will Campbell. I think a lot of people are getting a little bit cold on him as the draft process is happening. A lot of it, I think, is prospect fatigue. He was amazing at LSU last year. You know, he wore number 7, which is reserved for some of the best players on the team. I don't think an offensive lineman has ever worn that number, and he's a really great player. Problem is that people question his arm length. And if he can properly play at tackle, what's great for the Bears is they don't need a tackle. They need someone to play on the interior of the offensive line. And Will Campbell is the best, I think, offensive lineman in this class. It just kind of depends on how you weigh it with positional value of tackle versus interior offensive line. Like I said, for the Bears, that works perfectly for them here. Now, the 49ers. I've got PTSD from the 49ers after I gave them Luther Burden on my first ever mock draft, and I got absolutely flamed for it. This has to be an offensive lineman again. Oh, no, sorry, this is an easy pick. Kelvin Banks Jr. I mean, again, another sprint the card in scenario here if this were to happen on draft day, which I don't think Kelvin Banks will fall that far. I have Kelvin Banks. If we're, again, going for him as a pure tackle, which I think he will be, I have him above Will Campbell just because that whole arm length thing depends on where you're going to value him. Teams will have these guys at different positions on their draft board, that is. He's just such a great pass blocker. He has 40 games under his belt, only allowed 1 sack and 8 pressures in this year, which includes the postseason, obviously. And, you know, when the rest of the Texas offensive line were getting worked by the Ohio State defensive line, Kelvin Banks was still really good. And he, I think, is one of the best pass blockers in this draft. And he can play, some people might have him as a guard, which is quite interesting. You know, maybe you start Kelvin Banks at guard and then he kicks out to tackle when Trent Williams retires. Who knows? But that's a home run pick, I think, here. Now, at 12, the Cowboys. People are going to be saying Ashton Genty. I don't know, guys. I don't know. They need wide receiver. I'm gonna go Emeka Egbuka here. Yes, I'm gonna go Emeka Egbuka here. I did also like tackle. I did also like edge. But it's been CeeDee Lamb and no one else on this offense. And yes, you could add Ashton Genty to that and he would add something. But generally speaking, when it's just one wide receiver, teams can sell out against that one wide receiver and just double him, bracket him, high-low, whatever it might be. And we saw that this year with CeeDee Lamb. It was his worst year. Yeah, he was injured. I'm not just talking about his overall stats. But to not have anyone else the defense has to worry about is a massive problem. And Emeka Egbuka is a great complementary wide receiver too. He's someone that I'm actually a bit lower on than consensus, but I don't hate that here. It's kind of a fit. Now, the Dolphins. This could be where one of my favorite players comes off the board. Let's see, though. So I do like Malachi Starks here because both of their safeties are free agents. Let me just double check that on my notes. But I believe they are both free agents. Yeah, both Poyer and Holland are free agents. Quietly, they have some cap issues as well. They're not rolling in cap. I think offensive line, Teron Armstead is going to be 34. Both guards are free agents. I'd like Malachi Starks, but I actually think that's almost a bit of a luxury pick, to be honest, given where the Dolphins are with their offensive line woes. Who's next? I love Aman Membu. Josh Simmons, he's been fantastic. He's been injured. Let's go Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons, I think, despite having a really short 2025 campaign due to injury, has shown that he could maybe be one of the best offensive linemen in this class. I mean, he played for Ohio State as their tackle, and he could be as high as some teams' offensive OT2, really, depending on where you have Will Campbell or Banks playing, for example, if they play guard. He only allowed one pressure and 158 pass blocking snaps. He's got great movement skills off the edge, good anchor against power as well, and in the run game. Only has 5.5 games of tape this year is a problem. Tore his ACL. Again, medical is going to be a massive part of his pre-draft process. If that comes back all fine, then doing great. Not sure how he fares maybe against higher end talent. He only played this year Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, and Michigan State, and didn't even go against Mike Green for Marshall because he went off the other side in that game. So maybe some questions about Josh Simmons. Maybe I should have gone on Membu, but either way, I think offensive line is the right way to go. Colts. Look, sorry, Colts fans. Tyler Warren, one of my favorite players in this draft class. He is a do-it-all wide tight end, 6'6", 255 pounds. He's played 69 snaps out wide, 62 in the backfield as a running back. That is 338 in line as a traditional tight end, 228 in the slot, and 33 at quarterback as a wildcat quarterback. This guy can literally do it all. He's an offensive Swiss Army knife, and with a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, who has accuracy problems, shall we say, to maybe underplay that a little bit, getting a player like Tyler Warren, adding to the offense, getting another weapon for Richardson with a massive catch radius who can work the underneath area of the field. You've got Alec Pierce then as the deep threat. You've got A.D. Mitchell. We'll see where he kind of fits in. You've got Michael Pittman as the number one there. So I think adding another weapon is just going to help you know if Richardson is the guy. And if he's not after this year, then great. You've still got a great offense to put another quarterback in, but you need to know if Richardson's the guy. Falcons, they need edge. This is Mike Green. I absolutely love Mike Green. He, no surprise to me, lit up the Senior Bowl. We have his official measurements at 6'3", 251 pounds. Now, he does have slightly shorter arms, 32 and 1/8 inch arms, which people don't love at defensive and offensive line generally because your length is really important for how you win. However, he did literally run over Josh Connolly Jr., who I think is going to be a first-round offensive lineman. And I think Mike Green showed that, while he has shorter arms, while he played at Marshall against lower competition, he can still dominate. He did it. He did against Ohio State with a mental spin move when they played, and he did it at the Senior Bowl, so much so that he left early. So Mike Green at 15, I love that pick for the Falcons. They need edge rush help, like I need air to breathe, and it's a great pick, if I do say so myself. This is Aman Membu to the Cardinals, I think. I absolutely love Aman Membu. He is so strong. Yes, he's 6'3" 3/4", which some people are going to say makes him a guard. I love him at tackle, personally. He's 332 pounds. He's got 33 and 1/8 inch arm, so I think that arm length is fine. He's so strong. He's literally throwing lighter edge rushers out of the club. He's athletic as hell. He's young. He only turns 21 just before the draft. Got a really high ceiling. And I think his height, people might question, but I'd rather have a 6'3" tackle who naturally has great leverage, low man wins, as opposed to a 6'8" tackle who has really stiff hips and can't get low. Say, for example, Eagles guard and Jets for previous first round pick. Oh my God, this is going to really annoy me. Not Jordan Mailata. Anyway, you guys know who I'm talking about. The massive guard. Well, he's not a guard, but he was a tackle when he was drafted by the Jets and he just couldn't work it out. But that's what I'm talking about. Bengals. Wide receiver. Depends on what's happening with T. Higgins. They need defensive line, though, guys. They need defensive line. Walter Nolan, I really like. I love Shamar Stewart. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart here. He's my 17th ranked player on my big board at the moment. He had a fantastic Senior Bowl as well. He's 6'5", 281 pounds. Great combination of speed, power, and length. This guy moves so well for his size. He can chase down quarterbacks. There's even a rep where he was hitting the running back and the quarterback at the exchange for the handoff. That's how quick he is. He can get into the backfield essentially before the ball almost does. And he caused a fumble on that play. That was versus Arkansas. He's a good run defender. He can use that length that he has, 75th percentile arm length, 34 and 1/4 inch arms. Just creates knockback at the point of attack, sets the edge really well. Questionable tackling, which might be an issue at the next level. I think, though, at the Senior Bowl, that he showed that he has a really great arsenal of pass rush moves. He was winning with speed to power. He was winning with pure speed off the edge. He was running through guys. Like, Shamar Stewart, I think, is a massive riser for me and a player that I really, really like in this draft class. And the Bengals need defensive help, just generally. Seahawks. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Yeah. Oh, am I going to do it? It's like that meme. Oh, you know, when that girl's trying, I don't know, that drink. What I'm torn between here and why I'm going back and forth. Oh, Gray Zabel. Maybe that's a bit too early for him still, even though he was insane. I quite like him to my Texans a few picks later. Am I being cheeky by doing that? They need guard. They need center really badly. Really, really, really badly. Can they leave the first round without that? Oh, God, I don't know. But I'm looking at Malachi Starks because of Mike McDonald. Look at what Mike McDonald did with the safety in Baltimore. Why am I blanking on his name? Carl Hamilton. Jesus. My mind's all over the shop today. The Malachi Starks and Carl Hamilton are not the same player. They play the position completely differently, right? But if anyone knows how to use a player like Malachi Starks, who I think is one of the best players in this draft, it just depends on how you value the position of safety. I love the idea of Mike McDonald taking Malachi Starks. You've got Devon Weatherspoon, you know, maybe like kind of recreating like a Legion of Boom kind of thing down there in Seattle again. I know, again, Malachi Starks is not going to be the Legion of Boom. He's not Cam Chancellor, but he's a damn good player. It's between him and Gray Zabel, and I think Gray Zabel's a reach. I think Malachi Starks isn't. Seahawks fans, let me know in the comments if you like it or if you don't. I'm ready to fight you if you don't think it is a good pick. Buccaneers, again, it feels like they've needed edge for so long. They've drafted Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, they've drafted Yaya Diaby, they've drafted a few guys to try and help them off the edge, and none of them have really hit, to be honest. I don't love Mykel Williams. I think it's a bit early for Jack Sawyer. I also don't like Nick Scouton. Yes, this is an interesting one. Oh, God, I'll go Mykel Williams. I am not that high on Mykel Williams. He's at the moment 24th on my big board. Again, this is all subject to change though, with things like the combine, etc. He's got incredibly high upside, which great. He could potentially be one of the best players in this draft class. He's got vines for arms, 6'5", 265 pounds, great movement skills, good in run defense. He's a developing pass rusher. That's the thing though. He's a developing pass rusher. He has 26 total pressures this year, 26 total pressures last year. He's a lottery pick, guys. Like, how many times have we seen uber athletic, high potential edge rushers come into the league and just not make an impact? Tyree Wilson, for example. Trayvon Walker, for example, who, yes, now is beginning to come into his own. But look, it's a risk. It's a risk. But we've gone for it. Broncos at 20. Ooh, people might like... Where is he? People might like Colston Loveland here. Tight end, I think it's a big part of... Yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Colston Loveland. I think a tight end is a massive part of Sean Payton's offensive scheme. I think it's another weapon for Bo Nix, which I think he needs. He's a quarterback as well. I think that would be better with better weapons. And you need to build around your young quarterback, who you presumably think is going to be your answer going forward. Steelers... What they're doing at quarterback, I have no idea. No, I'm not going to take Jackson Dart in the first round. Leave me alone. They need a wide receiver. They also need a defensive back. Benjamin Morrison, I've done before, bit of an injury discount. Yeah, he's got an injured hip, but he's a really good player who'd be a great cornerback opposite the Penn State Joey Porter Jr. Wide receiver, you got Matthew Golden. They did draft the Michigan wide receiver last year, Roman Wilson, who was injured basically all of this year. George Pickens. I think Matthew Golden would take the top off the defense. He'd offer you something that George Pickens doesn't necessarily offer you. Like, he's more of an X receiver. Matthew Golden could be like a Z, take the top off of defense, with his speed and his suddenness. He ran a fantastic route in the game against Arizona State. In the playoffs for Texas on that fourth down, fourth and long. Wow, that was great. I really like Matthew Golden. I'm just thinking, like, do I kind of want to go to the Chargers next? I know it's not how I'm meant to think, but it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. Who else is on the wide receiver list? Well, not very many people, clearly. All right. Yeah, let's go with Matthew Golden. I think, again, Matthew Golden would be a great role player in this Steelers offense. He fills a role, like I said, that Pickens, Roman Wilson, and whoever else is on that depth chart, which isn't a very deep one, can't do. And whoever is quarterback, Russ, Fields, who knows, he's a great player which fills a need. Now, the reason why I scrolled down, I was actually okay with taking Matthew Golden there, which I do genuinely think is the better receiver. I can now do one of my favorite receivers in this draft and a fit that I love. Is this a reach? Probably by everyone else's board, but Eli Kayamano, I absolutely love in this class. The wide receiver from Stanford. Size and speed freak. Let me get my notes up on him. I think I have him. Yeah, he's my 19th ranked player. I'm going to be very high on this guy, guys. Ran a 10.76 100-meter dash in high school. Like, this guy covers ground insanely fast. He's 6'2", 210 pounds. Cooked Travis Hunter and Colorado in 2023. 13 receptions, 294 yards and 3 touchdowns. And honestly, it should have been more. He is exactly what the Chargers need, which is size and speed. Yes, they've got Ladd McConkey. Brilliant. He's a great 1B, but you need that big body threat who can be a 1A, who can line up out wide, beat press coverage, go up and get contested catches. That's Ella Caramano for me. Packers. They also need a wide receiver. Here's the thing with the Packers. As I think they're missing a dude, like an alpha, on both the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver and the defensive line, specifically edge, on that side of the ball. Who is available here as Jack Sawyer. I do like Jack Sawyer, but is he just going to be another role player for the Packers, which they don't necessarily need? They need a center, and they need a cornerback. Oh, they do need a cornerback. Jair Alexander might not even be on this team next year. Cornerbacks are really hard because it kind of depends on the fit. Let's just go with Benjamin Morrison. I think he's a great talent who, if he wasn't injured, wouldn't be this low. The pre-draft process is going to be massive for him in determining how healthy he is. Hip injury, obviously defensive backs need that. I mean, we all do, but no one more so than a defensive back. So that's kind of injury dependent. We'll roll with it. This is going to be easy for me. People are high on Walter Nolan. I need to rewatch Walter Nolan, I think. But I love Kenneth Grant. I think Kenneth Grant is such a great player. I think he's almost slept on because of where he plays with Mason Graham on that Michigan offensive line. Like, when I watched his tape, I was so impressed with how quick he was, basically. Like, he's got great hands. He has this nasty swim move. He just resets the line of scrimmage. He's very rarely getting blown off the ball, which is what you want from your interior defensive lineman. He had a monster game against Ohio State. He does kind of struggle with double teams, not when they're pushing him front on, but more laterally. He can kind of get washed down, so he kind of needs to have a bit of a wider base there and kind of a bit more anchor against getting pushed sideways. But this guy's going to be a really strong run defender, which is so valuable in the NFL, despite not being that sexy. And he's a developing pass rusher. And if he can continue to develop as a pass rusher, you could get a really great player there, I think. Now, my Texans, if you didn't already know, got my merch on, slap the badge. For me, we do need wide receiver. We really need wide receiver. Who do we have? I do love Jack Besh, but no, that's a bit too early for Jack Besh. So I'm going to go with Grace Abel, the offensive lineman. Says tackle, but I'll talk about that in a second. But the offensive lineman from North Dakota State, he's a massive riser from the back of the Senior Bowl. He's a player that probably wouldn't have gone in the first round before that week, and I think thoroughly deserves to now. He is maybe the best pure interior offensive lineman in this class, depending on kind of where you have those other offensive linemen with tackles and guards, etc., etc. But this guy's not going to play tackle. He played tackle for NDSU. He won't play tackle at the next level. He's 6'5" and 3/8, 316 pounds, only 32 and 1/4 inch arms, which is why he'll shift inside. He'll play guard or center, which Texans need both, so that's fantastic. He was dominant in the Senior Bowl at guard and center. I think he's pro-ready, big, quick, physical, strong lower half. He was taking Senior Bowl defenders for a walk in the run game. And the NDSU is a program which has churned out great offensive linemen for years now. Graham Barton's kind of my pro-comp, quote-unquote, for him. Not because they play the game necessarily in the same way, but because we saw last year how the Bucs took him, I think with the 26th overall pick. And he was a force multiplier along the Buccaneers offensive line. Like, being strong up the middle of the offensive line is so important, especially for a quarterback like CJ Stroud. Graves Abel, again, people aren't going to buy his jersey, but I think he's going to be a damn good player. The Rams, Cooper Kupp on the trade block. Again, though, wide receiver, I don't think you're taking here. Ashton Jeanty, guys, it's still on the board. Goodness. Where the hell's he going to go? Oh, dear. I'm going to have a lot of comments saying that Ashton Jeanty should have gone. Uh-oh. I'm looking at it and I don't know where he is going. Oh, no, I know where he's going to go. Rams. Offensive line, cornerback. I think they kind of need offensive line. I like Josh Connolly Jr. here. Yes, he got run over by Mike Green. Do not overrate one rep. I think Josh Connolly Jr. is a really good player. I think this is great value to get a solid starting tackle with the 26th overall pick. I think is fantastic considering how high tackles are valued in the modern NFL. And it just means that they might be able to protect Matthew Stafford for one more year. I mean, that he's like that fish from SpongeBob, that injured fish. He needs protection. The Ravens at 27. The Ravens at 27. They need a wide receiver as well. They need a tackle. They need edge. They need a cornerback. This could be Ashton Jeanty, but I don't know. I think Nick Skoughton here. Do I think Nick Skoughton here? Yeah, I think Nick Skoughton here. Nick Skoughton is a player that I'm lower on. I think he's going to split opinion generally, Nick Skoughton, on kind of where he'll go. I think he's a really powerful edge rusher, which gives him a high floor. I think he put on a bit too much weight this year. His tape from Purdue 2 years ago now, so much better when he was playing a bit lighter. But he's really versatile, 6'4", 285 pounds. Again, I'd like him to kind of drop 10 pounds, be quicker. He's a bit of a tweener at the moment, bit of a kind of jack of all trades, master of none. But I think if he does drop that weight, he can be a really good edge rusher and a player that I can imagine being a Raven, basically. Now this, oh God, I feel a bit dirty doing this. But Jack Sawyer, he's going to get a lot of comparisons to Aiden Hutchinson. He is not Aiden Hutchinson. Let me make that absolutely clear. Jack Sawyer is not Aiden Hutchinson. However, I do think that Jack Sawyer, first of all, is the perfect edge next to, or opposite rather, Aiden Hutchinson. And he's got an insanely high motor. He's a player that I think Dan Campbell is going to fall in love with if he hasn't already. I think he plays with his hair on fire, this guy. Had a great game against Texas. Loves that two-handed kind of swipe move, which you see TJ Watt win with. Again, he's not TJ Watt. Don't fall for it. But Jack Sawyer is just what you see is what you get. He's going to be an impactful second edge rusher. He's not going to be elite, but he's going to be really damn good against the run and the pass. And that's what the Lions need. But he's not Aiden Hutchinson or TJ Watt. So let's just make that absolutely clear. Now this, okay, I'm sorry. Listeners, I'm sorry. Viewers, I'm sorry. Ashton Jeanty has indeed fallen to the 29th overall pick. No, your eyes do not deceive you. Do I think this is going to happen on draft day? Almost definitely not. In fact, in most drafts, he's gone top 15. But looking back at what we've done, I don't know where, like in how the board's fallen this time. I think, the Bengals, he could go to the Bengals, he could go to the Cardinals, he could go to the Cowboys, obviously is the big one. But I think it's hard to place Ashton Jeanty, honestly. But I think here, with the now Browns' second first-round pick, because they traded with the Washington Commanders, I think that's perfect. They need a running back. Ashton Jeanty is literally going to come in and be an amazing starter for them in the backfield. Unfortunately, like I said, Nick Chubb has, unfortunately, through injury, taken a step back. And I think adding a player like Ashton Genty is going to bring some desperately needed juice to this offense. And I think the Browns have kind of killed this draft, come out with arguably in the first round 2 of the best players in the draft with Abdul Carter and Ashton Genty. Maybe they won't miss Myles Garrett. No, I'm joking. They will definitely miss Myles Garrett. The Bills. I'm going to end it with this pick because the Eagles and the Chiefs are playing on Sunday, and we don't know which way around they're doing it. And just want to keep my powder dry for when the Super Bowl does end. They need wide receiver. They need Walter Nolan. Right? It's got to be. The Bills had a massive problem this year, generally speaking, with their defensive line. I think they weren't good enough against the run, which was always going to be a problem. I was worried that if they did end up beating the Chiefs and they had to play the Eagles in the Super Bowl, that the Eagles' offensive line would just dog walk the Bills' defensive line. I think there's some talent there that can rush from the edge, pass rushing wise, but that's why they need an interior guy. And I think Walter Nolan from Mississippi, first of all, is great value and can do exactly what the Bills need. So that's been the draft. We'll quickly recap all the picks. As I'm doing it, feel free to let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. It's all a discussion, guys. It's all a discussion. Please don't get angry with me. The Titans at 1, Travis Hunter. Browns at 2, took Abdul Carter. Giants at 3, took Cam Ward. Patriots at 4, took Tetairoa McMillan. Jags at 5, took Mason Graham. Raiders at 6, took Shadur Sanders. Jets at 7, took Will Johnson. Panthers at 8, took James Pierce Jr. Saints at 9, Luther Burden. Bears at 10, Will Campbell. 49ers at 11, Kelvin Banks Jr. Cowboys at 12, Emeka Egbuka. Dolphins at 13, Josh Simmons. Colts at 14, Tyler Warren. Falcons at 15, Mike Green. Cardinals at 16, Amar Membu. Bengals at 17, Shamal Stewart. Seahawks at 18, Malachi Starks. My favorite pick of the draft, guys. Buccaneers at 19, Mikael Williams. Broncos at 20, Colson Loveland. Steelers at 21, Matthew Golden. 22 with the Chargers, Elikai Manor. Packers at 23 with Benjamin Morrison. Vikings at 24 with Kenneth Grant. My Texans at 25 with Gray Zabel, the big Senior Bowl riser. Rams at 26, Josh Connolly Jr. Ravens at 27, Nick Scarroton. Lions, jeez, I'm wavering here, guys. Lions at 28, Jack Sawyer. Browns with their second overall pick because they traded Myles Garrett to the Washington Commanders at pick 29. And finally, Walter Nolan to the Bills at 30. Like I said, any of those picks, love them, hate them, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. I'm going to be churning out all the draft content, guys. Mock drafts, mock draft reactions, player profiles. We'll do a lot of stuff after the Combine, for example. So make sure you subscribe because, dare I say, this is the best British NFL YouTube channel out there. So make sure you subscribe. But I've been your host, Don Corbs. This has been Corbs NFL. I'll see you on the next one.